One.
So let's look at some more arguments. Let's evaluate some more arguments. I've got some simple, short ones here, and hopefully won't take too much time to outline them or to figure out their logical structure, and we can spend more time thinking about whether they're sound, whether they're good arguments. First one says this: Philadelphia is the worst city in America. Boy, that sure sounds like a conclusion, doesn't it? So I think we can provisionally say that that's the main conclusion of this argument, that Philadelphia is the worst city in America. It has high taxes, and taxes have a big impact on quality of life. So does crime, and Philadelphia has one of the highest crime rates in the nation. In addition, the city is boring. It doesn't have much nightlife or many cultural institutions to boast of. Finally, it is incredibly dirty and ugly. Okay, so clearly, this argument here has one main conclusion, or one obvious main conclusion, and that is that Philadelphia is the worst city in America. Right away, if we're thinking critically about the argument, that sounds like it's an exaggeration. I mean, it may be true. It's just that to say that it's the worst city in America, there's a lot of really crappy places in America. It would really have to be a bad place to be the absolute worst city in America. So already we may say, well, you're really going to have to come up with some really good argument to say it's the worst city in America. Maybe if it had said it's a bad city, or it's an unpleasant city, or that it's somewhere or another not a place that you would want to live, it would be easier to prove it. But it's such an exaggerated claim that, doesn't look good for this argument. It has high taxes. Well, I don't know. High taxes compared to what? And are we talking about property taxes? Are we talking about income taxes? Are we talking about sales taxes? Okay, you're telling me it has high taxes, but you're not giving me any specifics, and you're also not showing me how it compares to other places. Philadelphia it's higher if you're paying sales tax, certainly, but part of that is state tax added to the city sales tax. It has really high taxes on things like alcohol and cigarettes and soda. But actually, compared to the suburbs, has pretty low property taxes. So I don't know about that as high taxes. Taxes do have a big impact on quality of life, if money does. So I'm not going to challenge that statement. And crime does too. And the claim here is that Philadelphia has one of the highest crime rates in the nation. Well, that again, this kind of thing that I would want to see statistics. I would want to see how does it compare to New York, Boston, Los Angeles, Chicago, other big American cities. Just to say it has one of the highest crime rates in the nation, I would want some proof of that. Off the top of my head, I know it has a higher crime rate, at least, for instance, a murder rate, much higher than New York or Boston, but lower than Baltimore or Chicago. So, what kind of, are we talking about murders? Are we talking about property crimes? Are we talking about assaults? It's really not clear. So that's questionable. Finally, it says the city is boring. Well, maybe. It says it doesn't have much nightlife or many cultural institutions to boast of. Well, I see a lot of young people out waiting for their Ubers in front of my house. I see a lot of restaurants opening up. It has good museums, at least relative to a lot of other places. The Philadelphia Museum of Art, the Barnes Collection, the Philadelphia Orchestra. It has theaters. It's no New York or L.A., but so it's questionable. And finally, it's incredibly dirty and ugly. Well, dirty. Yeah, I've seen a lot of dirty places in Philadelphia. I would not say it's an ugly city on the whole. I've seen other cities which I prefer those. So, okay, the question is: the premises, are they all true? Well, some of them seem maybe plausible, but they're not obviously true. They would need either to be altered or to be given more support to be made more plausible. Some of them seem outright kind of wrong. I think a lot of people would agree that the city is boring. and a lot or disagree that the city is boring, and a lot of people would probably disagree that it's dirty and ugly. Although difference of opinion there. So, if all these things were true, would they lead to? Is the reasoning good that it would? I don't think even if they were true, it'd make it the worst city in America. So, I would say that this argument really is not very good at all. Its premises are of questionable truth, and the reasoning is of questionable validity. That is, it's not really clear that even if the premises were true, that they would really lead to this conclusion. So this first argument is a not very sound argument, not a very good argument. I would have to say it's a bad argument. Let's take a look at the second argument here. We may have to continue this in the next video. Apple Computer is one of the most profitable companies in the world. However, many of its ridiculously overpriced products are of questionable usefulness. Although the iPad has been a hit for Apple, a typical user reports that after an initial period of enthusiasm, the product turns out to be less useful than expected. It's too bad that Apple continues to profit by fooling its customers in this way. Well, definitely argumentative. Is there actually an argument here? The first statement, that it's one of the most profitable companies in the world, that turns out not to be really very important to the argument. There's no attempt to prove that it is one of the most profitable companies in the world, nor does anything really seem to follow from that. So it doesn't really take much of a role in the reasoning. Its products are of questionable usefulness. That's an interesting claim. That's a premise. That they're ridiculously overpriced, I think we can safely ignore, because there's no proof given that they're overpriced. But we could include it as a premise. But it seems to be a claim that calls out for some kind of evidence. But here, maybe there's some hope here. The products are of questionable usefulness. Although the iPad has been a hit for now, a typical user reports that after an initial period of enthusiasm, the product turns out to be less useful than expected. That seems to support that claim here, seems to support this one here. So we've got a little chunk of reasoning there, at least. It all really depends on the truth of this. Is that true? Does a typical user actually report such a disappointment in the product? I don't know. I would like to see some proof of that. But if it were true, then it would seem to support the claim that the products are of questionable usefulness. It's too bad that Apple continues to profit by fooling its customers in this way. I guess that's the overall conclusion of the argument, if there is one. Supported by this little chunk of reasoning here. So is it a good argument? Okay, well, we're sort of ignoring this, that it's about its profits, because the truth of it seems to be irrelevant, because it doesn't really figure into the argument. There's no proof given that its products are overpriced. The proof given that they're of questionable usefulness refers only to one product, and a dubious claim about the typical user reporting a disappointment or reporting that the product is less useful than expected. And that's supposed to support the claim that it's too bad that Apple continues to profit by fooling its customers in this way. Okay. Its premises are questionable. The argument supporting this premise that the products are of questionable usefulness, the argument is dubious. It relies upon a premise which is unproven and questionable. But even if they were true, does it support this claim that would constitute fooling its customers? Well, if its products were overpriced, perhaps, and if they really were less useful than generally thought, then it would give some support to the notion that Apple is fooling its customers, and it's too bad that it profits by doing so.